This video is brought to you by the lovely guys over at Robotoys. For all your Hasbro, Takara, third-party and knockoff desires, Robotoys has you covered. For 10% off, use the code DRLOCK 10% off at the checkout. Now on to today's diagnosis. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is a last-minute change on my part. I wasn't really planning on reviewing these two. The next review was supposed to be Hot Soldier's Bumblebee, but I can't find it. So another Magic Square figure it is. It was then going to be Magic Square Artfire, who I think is their worst release by far. Also can't find it. Maybe I'll have to review it in the new year, because I definitely do want to cover it. That being said, I thought, well, these are lying around left over from my Sea Spray review, I might as well review them, because we've got some great engineering and some lackluster engineering. It just highlights the two ends of Magic Square's design philosophy. Let's take a look at it and see how it works. So for one of their later outings, they have not copied an existing Masterpiece version and have instead gone for their own designs. So how do these hold up now that they're not relying on someone else's work? Well, pretty good. One of them's not as good, but one of them is well better. But I suppose we should start off with the Sea Spray, you know, so we work our way up. Sea Spray in his little boat mode is very, very lovely. They've gone for a toy-accurate aesthetic as opposed to a toon-accurate one, and it works quite well. I like the fact that they don't have that ugly bulbous thing at the top there, and it manages to mimic sort of a Fans Toys vibe, just a little bit. It looks sort of like the Fans Toys version in terms of its kind of proportions, but, you know, that's just probably a coincidence because it's a boat. It doesn't really borrow much engineering from the Fans Toys one either, so it doesn't really matter there. It's very, very clean, although I'm not really a fan of that big hollow gap there. They probably should have tried to fill that up, but, you know, you win some, you lose some. Underside's also pretty clean, although you do have to deal with the head at the back there. It is quite unfortunate that that is there in general. But, you know, they've painted all the windows, they've added some extra paint on the top here, which is very nice. You've also got the back section here, the quintessential Sea Spray bit. It sticks out a bit further than usual, but it gets the job done quite well. The problems with this figure are not in the vehicle mode. Aside from the plastic is still the same, it's still not as good, although they've gone for a more kind of softer matte finish as opposed to the more grainy one that Sideswipe has, although that's the finish on the plastic itself. That is not the plastic materials. The materials still feel cheap because it's that cheap Magic Square plastic. And I'm just going to keep referring to it as Magic Square plastic from now on because, well, what else would you call it? Now, I really like Beachcomber. I think he's a brilliant little mini-bot replicated in the Legend scale, but you wouldn't really know it in the vehicle mode. The vehicle mode is pretty plain. The front section is, well, painted gunmetal, which is nice, and you've got nice pinned wheels at such a small scale, but his paint is non-existent, and his, you know, seat section is pretty messy as well. You've got the arms on show back there, the head's just kind of sticking out the back there, it's pretty hollow at the back there. In general, the vehicle mode's not the best, but that's not why I like this. I like this because of the transformation, which I'll get into later. I do really wish, though, that he had some extra paint on him. Now, yes, I could stick an Autobot symbol on the feet there, but then that would kind of make the robot mode look a bit weird, and I don't really want to do that, but I suppose I'll have to. Underside, well, that's just a robot doing a handstand, or more like a praying stance, I guess. Although this guy is really tiny. He's like on New Age Bumblebee levels of tiny, so it is understandable if they haven't put that much into it. He's tinier than even Sea Spray over here. And on the topic of such size comparisons, here they are next to a Legion figure, a standard Legends figure, and oh look, another Sea Spray. I think I still prefer the Magic Square version. A standard Siege Micromaster, a not-so-standard LEGO minifigure, and Crumbs. Not gonna lie, Sea Spray's transformation is actually quite wonky. It's not that enjoyable, but I guess what could they do at such a small scale? Oh wait, they could have done everything the G1 or the Titans Return versions had done at such a small scale. Ah well, you want to remove the arms first like so. There are some panels on the side here that you want to untab like so. That will allow you to bring the feet up. And then this part I don't really like. You have to push these bits down there at the back. They don't fold in at all. Pretty much every Sea Spray, aside from the G1 version that didn't have to, actually has these fold into the legs themselves. And the fact that they didn't really bother with that, despite the fact the Times Return version was able to do that properly, Well, that's just lazy. You open up the chest here, and then you push it in on its second hinge into these two grooves here, and it just kind of sits right there. And then you're able to pull the head up. If you haven't pulled the head up, if it's not really out far enough, you may have to open up the chest and push it up again. But then you can turn it around and push it back down. The arms extend just a wee bit, and then the fists rotate like so. Bada bing, bada boom. And you separate the legs, and Sea Spray is a Sea Spray, alright. When it comes to Beachcomber, though, oh boy, his transformation is fun. First thing you want to do is remove this top section. Then you unpeg the arms from the side and just leave them out there. Push up the bumper section into the legs, and then the entire leg assembly just folds down like so. And now this is my favorite bit, but dear god, the camera just does not want to focus on it today. Well, okay, folding in these side panels like so, then folding up these panels like so, and there you got your feet. That is an amazing little way of doing the whole leg fold out thing, and I wish Hasbro would do something very similar. Then you come around to the front and you bring out the arms like so. Take this section and rotate it 180 degrees, and then you just kind of fold it into the back like so. Then come around to the front, and around the head goes. And he's a pretty handsome little bugger. And hooray, we have mini-bots. And Sea Spray exists while Beachcomber is quite lovely. And why is the camera not focusing on them at the moment? I do not know, my camera's going whack. Regardless, well, they are of varying quality. Neither of them are bad, but you know, both of them still do have the Magic Square hallmarks. Once again, you're dealing with horrible plastic, although this time it's had an effect on some of the tolerances, like Sea Spray's legs are far looser than normal, and once again, you also have to deal with the head issue. The head just goes boop, right off like that. I still don't get why they leave it like that. They're both the same. Please, Magic Square, peg in your heads. But Sea Spray has an issue of his own. From pulling out the head so much, the eye paint has chipped, and that is not cool. That paint should have been the most durable, because you have to actually get in with your finger and pull out the head for robot mode. That is a very big issue. But in general, Sea Spray doesn't actually look the best either. He's, well, I get that he's tubby, and a lot of people like tubby, and he does look a little better than the Hasbro version, just a little bit, but he doesn't feel that great. His proportions are a bit off, and, well, I guess he's passable for a Legion figure, but he could have been way better, especially given the kind of engineering prowess that Magic Square does possess, because they are great at engineering, it's just some of the materials and weird designs. Maybe the toy accurate head sculpt would have worked better with this kind of boxy design, maybe it wouldn't have, but maybe that's just my own personal bias talking. The other issue I've already explained, these parts at the back here, they really should have folded into the body. But hey, I'm complaining about a tiny little Legends figure. Yes, I'm complaining about a tiny little Legends figure. It is 2019. We have better options on the market. Or we will have better options for Sea Spray on the market. I imagine that New Age will take a crack at it eventually. But his articulation is pretty stock standard. The head swivels like so, although it's a bit hard to get in there with that bit. Also moves up and down on the panel if you want to get some extra stuff there. Ball jointed shoulders, bicep swivel, 90 degree... Oh no, not 90 degree elbow. It doesn't even go 90 degrees. That's a bit of a shame. Wrist swivel, but it's got this butt ugly tab there. That's a bit annoying. Waist swivel, and it's actually nice and solid. Locks into place at the front, though, which is kind of interesting. You got nice ball joints here, and an inputted ankle tilt right there. And you can also access the transformation joint for a foot pivot there. So, posability is pretty good. Beachcomber is the star of this set, though. He is simple but effective, much like the New Age offerings. The weird kind of wibbly plastic doesn't really feel as bad because it's densely packed. You got it densely packed in the torso, densely packed into the legs with all the panels back there. Yeah, you still have to deal with the head popping off, but the paint on the head is far more durable, which is very, very nice. Lovely paint on the chest as well, and lovely proportions to accentuate that paint. It's done incredibly well. Love the detail how they got the wheels on the shoulders. It gives us some extra definition. The backpack cleans up surprisingly well for having that thing back there. You unfortunately do have to move it up a bit to access the full waist swivel, but I've never complained about that, aside from maybe the first review I ever did of Thrilling 30 Springer, but since then I haven't really complained. I don't really have any gripes with this figure. I mean, maybe he could have used a little bit more paint, but if you consider his size, it doesn't really matter. His articulation is also pretty good. In fact, I'd say it's a little better than Sea Spray's. You've got to swivel at the head again, thanks to that bloody peg. Can they please stop doing that? Ball jointed shoulders with an extra hinge upwards, which is very nice. And double jointed, ball jointed elbows. So you've got the double joint there, and you got the bicep swivel there. Brilliant. Waist swivel works quite well. Ball joints here. Thigh swivel. Nice knee that goes well beyond 90 degrees because of the way it transforms. Not a super bend, but it does get the job done. No foot pivot, but you do get an ankle tilt, and it goes a nice long way. So, overall, very, very lovely. And for ye old size comparisons, here they are next to a standard Legion figure, so you can see they are small, not as small as the New Age stuff, but still pretty tiny. A standard Legends figure, and oh look, Sea Spray again. And a standard Siege Micromaster, a not so standard LEGO minifigure, and Crumbs. So yeah, Sea Spray is kind of disappointing when you think about it. It's a big plastic square in the middle that kind of moves around a bit, and then the legs don't really do much around it. After messing with the Hasbro version, which is pretty much the same thing but a little cleaner, the G1 version, and the Fans Toys version, I don't really think this brings much new to the table, and it could have done a lot more. Of course, I'm not trying to hold this up to the standard of Fans Toys, it is a Legends figure, but I just feel they could have gone a little further, mainly because of what Beachcomber does. Maybe it's because the only other Beachcomber toy I have to compare this to is the Power of the Primes version, which was deeply disappointing, but this guy right here is pretty much the perfect little Legends figure to have on your desk and mess around with. These two have a lot in common. They're both tiny, they're both hella fun, they both have impeccable engineering and amazing articulation. If you can get Beachcomber on his own, and I hear there are ways of doing so, then I highly recommend you do that, because it's just that much fun. The legs alone make this figure worth it, because their engineering is quite astonishing. And if you'd like to purchase more Magic Square figures, well, I'd suggest checking out today's sponsor, Robotoys. They specialize in Hasbro, Takara, third-party, and knockoffs, so you have a very wide selection of figures that you can choose from. And for a single purchase, if you use the code DrLock 10% off at the checkout, you can get, well, what the code says, 10% off. I recommend waiting to use it on a huge purchase and getting the best bang for your buck. Maybe get a bunch of Legends from different companies, because that should work. So that's it, right? Those are the three main pillars of the current third-party fandom in terms of Legends. Actually, no, there is one more that is slowly rising up through the ranks, and for all we know, they might just be the dark horse.